Okay, there we go. Now we're recording. That would have been really annoying. Okay, so now that we have an audience, I guess it's time to. I saw that Leaflet did this. I actually didn't watch Leaflet's video yet because I kind of want to see what this test is, because I have a sneaking suspicion this is going to be like all those internet tests where again it's like I don't really know how to answer this question, and it seems really vague on purpose, because that happens to be, again, very common in these political quizzes. So we'll see how well that does, right? Keel Nalo says, copyright used to just last the lifetime of the creator, I think, but lifetime plus 25 years was thanks to Disney. It's actually worse than you think, because copyright used to only last for like 25 years. And the whole purpose of that was that you couldn't just coast on a single invention that you made. So it's actually significantly worse than you think. Let's see. I did that test. I'm purely in the Chud category. Well, we shall see, right? Let's see. So let's read through this, right? What is Chud woke values? Chud woke values is a test that's kind of fucking stupid based. At the end of the quiz, your answers will be displayed on a compass. It is modeled off of the Sapley values test, which itself is modeled off the 8 values test. Interesting. A few questions are poorly written. Okay, well, that's fucking okay. We're off to a great start, right? There are 70 questions in the test. Why? Autism. Secondly, that's okay. Okay, you know what? Fuck it. Secondly, this is an attempt to put some kind of science behind a chart made with some friends and acquaintances. God damn it. Okay. Much to consider. Your questions / results suck. Suggestions for improvements are always welcome. Give us free suggestions here. Work in progress. Fucking hell, mate. Privacy notice. This site doesn't record any data. Legal notice. And then we have like fucking copyrights for 8 values, Sapley values, and then Chud woke values. Okay. Well, okay. So let's just get started, I guess, right? All right, let's see the 70 questions. So this is going to be a bit longer than I expected, right? Very broad brush, right? Let's see. You will be presented with a series of statements. For each one, click the button with your opinion on it. Proceed shuffled, proceed unshuffled. Okay. Is this literally okay? So, question 1. Within my political movement, company, or social group, we should elevate voices from minority identity groups. I'm not an identitarian. I don't believe that your identity, quote unquote, it means a damn thing, to be perfectly honest. So I'm going to go with strongly disagree. Hold on. Hold on. Let me reread this. From my yeah, okay, so I'm gonna go with strongly disagree. Let's see, because like, what the fuck is a minority voice, right? Is like a left libertarian in a like setting filled with like in New Hampshire? No, fuck off, right? Let's see. Countries such as the U.S. and Australia should give a portion of land, particularly important sites and lands agreed in treaties, back to indigenous people. What? Okay. I am going to go with strongly disagree, just because this opens up the, I had a slider, not buttons, but okay, fair enough. I'm going to go with strongly disagree, because if we go to this, then this is just a foot in the door to expel the, the non-autochthonic from a region, and it's a dangerous, slippery slope. I am attending or have attended prestigious school, regular university, trade school. I did not / will not attend college. Unsure. Well, in this case, definitely wasn't prestigious. Men only. I had. Okay. Man bun, definitely don't have that. Shaved sides, short to medium top. No. So neither of these. Why should we give land back? I mean, that is the $1 million question, right? Let's see. How many genders are there? Only two. Gender should be abolished. No. It is immoral for a country to invade and or claim another land for resources. Okay, so if it's just for resources, right? Just for resources, I would strongly agree. There are some words or phrases people should be socially punished for using. Okay, so this is a little bit more complicated. I know what they mean here, so the actual answer to this question is strongly disagree. But this is what I'm saying about like it being this is what I'm saying about it being like poorly worded, right? Because I'll give you an example of something where it's like you should probably be strongly punished for those words and phrases, right? Like if you, not really phrases, but it's like like there are certain speech acts that should land you in hot water. Like if you falsely accuse someone of rape, then yeah, that should land you in hot water, right? But if you're just gonna drop the gamer word, absolutely not. That should not get you, unless you're gonna like append a threat to it, I guess. But just dropping the gamer word, it should not get you punished for using it. Let's see. Funny thing, I got a lot of man questions when I'm a woman. That's fair enough, right? Let's see. I put pronouns in my bio. Oh, I definitely didn't do that. Deportation is legitimate even if no other crime than overstaying a visa has been committed. I would go strongly agree on this one. To eat meat is morally wrong. I would strongly disagree on this one. Actually, with the meat one, again, considering how devastating the vegan fucking farm cultivation has been to the environment, quote unquote, it's actually probably more moral to eat meat than to go vegan, to be perfectly honest, if we're going to use consequentialist reasoning. Let's see. I prefer city, suburbs, countryside. I'm going to go with the suburbs. Wait. I mean, so it kind of depends, because I don't really give a shit about like where it is, so long as I'm in like a place that has castle doctrine and no duty to retreat, right? It's like I don't really mind if there's like if I have a bunch of neighbors or just no neighbors at all, so long as like I have the option, I have the right to defend my property with lethal force and the right to not retreat when threatened. What the fuck are these questions? Yeah, no, I kind of saw that this was, I kind of saw this coming from a mile away. Chicken Tender says, never mind, I think this is a different test. Looks pretty similar, though. This is the one that was linked in Leaflet's video. I haven't seen Leaflet's video. I clicked on it, grabbed the link, and then went to here. So, a lot of this is going to be contingent on how specifically you read and understand these questions, right? Let's see. Maybe it is, I'm not sure. Fair enough. Kionella says the one thing about the bio thing on some of the sites I'm on, it was automatic. That is fair. It's literally taking the choice away from the person using the site, right? Boo Huckley said animal and plant nutrients are too different from each other. What is this about? So never go to a Dem city. Oh yeah, definitely not. If I'm forbidden to, well, I mean, all the cities are Dems, right? So I'm gonna go with suburbs, right? Let's see. Transgender people are the gender they say they are. I would strongly disagree, because I don't think gender, which is an abstraction, is actually meaningfully distinguished from sex. You can say it is, right? But you could also say the form of a dog is completely independent of any concrete dog. You would be ridiculous for saying that, but yeah. So Let's see. It's acceptable to make fun of someone based on their identity. Uh, well, I mean, it kind of depends, right? I have a Jewish friend of mine who makes fun of the fact that I'm Hispanic all the time, and then I turn around and I like tell very potentially offensive jokes about the Hebrews to him, and we've never had a problem, right? Find yourself a friend who can actually take being who can actually take you being a little racist against them, right? Because that's how you know you're real friends, is if you can be racist to each other and y'all are actually having fun, right? So I would absolutely say I would say, yeah, in this case, it's definitely an agree, because like that's a good way to test whether or not someone is actually a good friend, right? Is whether or not you can actually make fun of each other for your again, like what categories you're in, right? Like, so yeah, I would probably go with. And you know what? If someone is acting like a stereotype, I don't think it's all that. I don't think it's all that like. Bad to just point out that they're acting like the stereotype that they allegedly don't want to embody, right? It's like, if you're gonna act like stereotype X, why do I have to not call you stereotype X if you're living up to the exact stereotype, right? I've seen this happen before, especially with like, again, my own group, because I'm Hispanic, and then you see some Hispanic people live up to the Hispanic stereotype, and it's like, no, why the fuck should I give a shit if someone's calling you X, Y, or Z if you're acting like X, Y, or Z, the stereotype, right? So, I don't know. That's just me. So, I'm going to go with, yeah, it is okay. It's not necessarily advisable, but I would say that it is okay. Hold on. Let's see. Keanu says, I got my link from Lord Intellectual. It's why veganism is bad. That was Boo Huckley. And then Keanu again. These questions should be yes or no questions, then the agree/disagree spectrum. Yeah. The problem is that there's a lot open to interpretation for each of these questions, right? Fundamentally, our societies is sexist and patriarchal, and it is a bad thing. Now, what if I think sexist and patriarchal are good, actually? I'm kidding, right? Go full leaflet on this one, right? Do invasions even exist in capitalist worlds? Well, you're definitely not incentivized to invade anyone under a capitalist system. Turns out war costs a lot of money, right? Let's see. So, and is a bad thing. First of all, I would contest the sexist and patriarchal, right? It's one of the things where, like, I don't even think first wave feminism was a good thing, because I think first wave feminism is actually predicated on a lie, and one that had devastating consequences. Specifically, the idea that like women couldn't do certain things that, just objectively speaking, at the time they could, right? Like, for example, you'd have like modern people who don't know anything about history being like, oh yeah, women couldn't own property. It's like, actually, in a lot of these places, they could actually own property. They could even own property when being married, as like distinct from their husband's property. So it's like, again, just historically illiterate people making a lot of claims. But yeah, so in this case, considering this is very clearly bent towards a feminist lens, I am going to go with strongly disagree, because I don't think, even on a foundational level, feminism makes sense. I'm a complementarian, right? So I believe that men and women are complementary to each other. They need each other, but they are not the same, and they are not equal in the way that like feminists want to portray. Let's see. I think it's particularly offensive for people to say slurs. I actually could not give a shit. I respect people's neo-pronoun. I do not. Let's see. A strong hierarchy is desirable in society. So it kind of depends, right? Because like every society, even an anarchist society, would have a hierarchy in it, right? So not to an extent of like authoritarianism, but I do think, like, again, a strong hierarchy is desirable, right? Like, again, the boss needs to lead the company, right? And the employee needs to follow the lead of the boss, especially if the boss knows what the fuck he's doing, right? Same thing. It's like, if your teacher, if your professor, right, is actually good at what they do and they're actually doing the right thing, they should be a strong educational leadership. So there's a hierarchy there, right? The student learns from the teacher. and this creates a stable foundation for society, right? The higher exists at service to the lower, right? And the lower serves the higher in mutual respect, right? So it's like, again, the employer serves the employee by telling them where to direct their efforts in order to actually make the money that they will end up being paid. And the employee serves the employer by actually being the extension of their arms and legs in enacting their will, so that they can actually make that profit, that they will be getting. So there's like a mutual service and a properly functioning hierarchy. So I would say I would agree. Let's see. Kionella says, I love Hispanic people. In my experience, 9 times out of 10, they're very nice and giving people. It depends. It depends on which Hispanic, because there's a lot of Hispanic groups, and some Hispanic groups are not like others, right? I am a little tired of being in Texas, where I have to play dodge the illegal on the road. Let's see. I have compared real-life political events to mainstream entertainment, such as Star Wars, anime, or Harry Potter. I mean, I've done it to historical events, but I've also done it to, like, Star Wars, anime, and Harry Potter. You have to use the tools at your disposal. But I understand what the question is actually asking, right? The question is actually asking, do I over-rely on specifically these fictional tales, and like as if they represent the real? So while I have done that, what it's actually deriving at, I would disagree. So I would say agree, because I have done it, but I don't necessarily think that this is as solid a knockdown comparison as a lot. It's like the people who are like, oh yeah, this is just like The Handmaid's Tale. And I'm like, okay, so you read one book. Did you read any other book other than The Handmaid's Tale? Why, no, I have not. I was like, okay, I'm dealing with a retard here. I'm dealing with an absolute mong. I've had many conversations like that where it's like, it's not even a very well written book, and it makes more. It would make more sense if this was like about Iran, right, than it would the United States. But I digress. Vietnamese immigrants for the win, right? I mean, fair enough, right? Yeah. Them and Cubans, right? It's like, yes, we've survived communism, and therefore we hate communism. Like, I want more of these people. If you hate communism, you're welcome, right? So, I mean, I have, so I'm just gonna hit agree. I like anime. Strongly agree. But what the fuck does this do with the choke woke thing? I'm gonna say this. I like anime to the point I don't even watch live action films. Right? I have very few live action movies. I don't watch live action movies. I grew up in a family of artists, so a cartoon, and I also watch Western cartoons, and I digress, right? But like a cartoon or an animation is literally a drawing come to life, right? So it's like, how could I not be fascinated by that when I literally grew up in a family of artists? Joe Dirty 555 is 1984 considered mainstream? It used to. It used to be mainstream reading, to be perfectly honest. And actually, that's a good fucking point now that you bring it up. Right? Oh my god. That actually is a good fucking point. But it used to be considered mainstream. Long says this is very Chinese. Possibly, right? I'm not entirely sure. It might make more sense of the quiz, but I couldn't comment on that myself, because I don't really know how the quizzes work in China, to be perfectly honest. Boo Huckley says 95% of political speech are Harry Potter words. Mudbloods. Oh my god. Fuck. Keanu says, I can't read really old books. I'm too illiterate despite having college level reading comprehension. Well, I mean, it depends on the book. It's like there's certain texts are definitely what is it? Ergodic, which is like difficult by design. Let's see. Keanu says anime is chud. I'll take that. Long says after marriage, all financial planning falls under the woman's responsibility. Kind of based, not gonna lie. Robert Kinley says the third right and left extremists both love identitarian politics. I am very well aware of this. In fact, I actually probably should do a video about like how the Identitarian is basically the same on the right and the left. But anyway, so I like anime. Let's go with that. I followed the health advice as masking recommendations during COVID. I did fucking not, actually. Before the COVID thing popped up, I actually bitched and moaned about how slow the FDA was. And then that shit popped out, that shit popped out so quickly. And I was like, I'm not exactly all that plussed about this. First of all, I'm being ordered to do something, and that doesn't exactly invite me cooperating with you. Second of all, why is this getting special treatment, right? So I'm going to go with strongly disagree. I actually do wear masks when I'm sick, right? Like, that is a practice I actually do just personally because I don't want to necessarily, like, spread an infection. But it's like, absolutely fucking not. I did not actually follow masking and health advice during COVID. In fact, I was actually trying to work during the fucking pandemic, and then they shut everything down, and I have been bitter ever since. Animals deserve certain universal rights. They do not. This is based on the technicality. Rights, right? Rights are a thing that are derived from the nature of man, and the fact that man is a rational animal. And rights entail obligations, and animals do not have obligations because they are not rational animals. So, Kenok says, I like anime, strongly agree. Fair enough, right? Kionado says, I love Chinese animation. It's really pretty. I think I actually have White Snake on DVD, and I need to check out The Legend of Hay. That actually looks like a really pretty animation. Yeah, so strongly disagree on this one. It's a literal category error. Let's see, the family is the most important unit in society. I would agree. In fact, I would agree with the medieval European who said that your loyalty to your family is actually higher than your loyalty to your king. So, yes, I would actually strongly agree with this. Men, let's see, I have, let's see. Woman friends, but only online. One woman friend in real life. Multiple women friends in real life. I have one woman friend in real life. Let's be perfectly honest, right? And she is absolutely based, to be perfectly honest. Black Puerto Rican woman. And oh my God, the shit she will just blurt out. And I'm like, damn. you really hate the Democrats, right? Oh my God. Calm down. But Joe Dirty 550 said, I told my boss I'd quit before getting the vaccine. Thankfully, my boss liked me enough. That's fair enough, right? As Boo Huckley said, fair enough, right? This is an impasse, right? So my hair is dyed. No, first of all, I'm too lazy to dye my hair. Second of all, I hate that blue hair got taken by the left. Save the blue hair from the left. Return it to just being an aesthetic choice that sane people could make. So no. Let's see. Borders and nation states should be abolished. No. I may have a strong affinity for anarcho-capitalism, and like I really do want culture to move in a way that anarcho-capitalism becomes actually viable, because let's be fair, no system works if the culture isn't actually set up for it, right? Monarchy didn't exactly work for a number of cultures, and it wouldn't work for certain cultures. And let's be fair, republicanism doesn't work for certain cultures. There is no universal human culture. So it is a thing that can happen. I actually have historical citations showing that the various claims of the anarcho-capitalist are actually true. But I understand that modern Americans could not live in that society. Right? I want the rest of the country to become like New Hampshire as much as I can. But, you know, I digress. So since they're right here, I'm going to go with strongly disagree, because Ancapistan would need borders as well. Let's be perfectly honest. See, women only. Well, oh, you know what? Fuck it. Today I'm identifying as a woman. I'm kidding, right? I'm curious what this says, though. How much of the domestic labor, childcare, cooking, cleaning do you/would you do in a relationship?
Why is it? Why you could have phrased this in a way that it would have been neutral to like how much should a like woman do in a relationship. So again, this is a very poorly worded question, and since I'm not a woman, I'm just gonna click not a woman. Let's see. Oh, good. Hold on. Let's see. Kionala White Snake. Love that one. I have it on DVD too. I recommend Moto Shuzi or something like that. I forgot how it's spelled. It's a good story. Fair enough. I wasn't a big fan of Neja. Like, I get what they were trying to do, but I just didn't care about it. Let's see. Robert Kinley said, the wanting seed in children of men were mainstream, now hated. Wanting seed in children of men. Okay. Buck Henley said, the difference between cultures and cults are bad habits. Children of Men should be made to be read at high school in America. Yes, I would agree. Keanu says, I personally picked most. Fair enough. Boo Huckley says, reduce all cultures into marketable plushies. Oh my god, we're doing Poland ball, but with marketable plushies, right? Oh my goodness. Your culture is my costume, and I shall dance in it, right? Let's see. We should end programs that support diversity, equity, and inclusion from business and government. Yes, because diversity, equity, and inclusion is a Gramscian project, and it is subversive in the fact that it uses pleasant language for an ideological purpose. It is an absolute spook. I strongly agree. Anyone who is using this fucking bullshit strategy needs to absolutely be disassociated with. So, and it needs to be cut out of the government at all, you know, everywhere. So I strongly agree. Parents should hold absolute power over their children as they are older and more... I would not say absolute power. Okay, Boo Huckley. I see your game. Anyway, so I would not say absolute power. We've already seen cases of, like, again, parents, for example, transing their children, again, you know, essentially against their will. Very obviously against their will, right? So, but on the flip side, you know, the parents also have the ability to protect their kids from making stupid surgical decisions. So, I would say strongly disagree. There are, obviously, the parents should have primary authority over the child, even more so than the state, unless the state actually has some real reason for the safety of the child, right? For the actual rights of the child, which would be life and, you know, the, not being fucking mutilated. So, yeah, I would say agree, but not because they are older and more experienced. It would be more of a... because a child is not, like, it doesn't really have the rational faculties, right? They literally can't make these choices due to the straight up, like, developmental biology, per se. So I'd go with agree. Gender is a social construct, not a natural state of affairs. This is a spook of a question because gender is a complete abstraction. First of all, gender is not actually about male and female. Gender is a linguistic category. It is associated with male and female because in most European languages, the genders, or literally types, because that's what gender actually means, is usually male, female, and neuter. So it's associated with sex classification, right? If you do gender, for example, in African languages, it's usually based off of animacy, how alive a thing is, right? So this really is just this really is just again, the use of subversive language, right? So no, I don't think abstractions exist on their own. I don't think abstractions are real unless instantiated in a concrete. So no, gender is not a social construct. It is inextricably tied to sex, and any attempt to separate gender from sex is an act of mystification. So I would say strongly disagree. Okay, let's see. Hello, Libuv. I'm gonna struggle with that name. There are many people here, right? Hopefully, right? I'm trying, right? Hopefully I can get people here. Robert Kindley said, your culture is my costume. Blackface? Well, I'm not going to stop you. Keanu says it depends on if the mom is a left it beach. Yeah, fair enough. Robert Kindley says, I'm sorry, I am being bad boy. Fair enough. Let's see. I am waiting until marriage for sex. I would say strongly agree. You have to be responsible. Let's see. I like offending people and intentionally say provocative things. Okay, so it depends. It really does depend, right? Because I'm not trying to necessarily piss people off unless they kind of just deserve to be pissed off, right? But I did spend 6 months trolling one mark, and they were too dumb to realize that I was trolling them. And they could have just like stopped the trolling by just walking away from the conversation, and I would have just dropped it. But no, you know, stupid game, stupid prizes kind of deal, right? So I do like offending people on occasion, right? But not to not to a great extent. It's usually just to I must only use this power to be annoying, right? To annoy, the old Bart Simpson quote, right? So I guess in that case, since usually I'm not like actually bothering people, I'm gonna go with like kind of neutral. Like I like it when it's like funny, but outside of that, if it's not really a good joke, there's not really a reason to do it. Right? Oh my goodness. My marriage is a sham. It was the union of two families, and you know there was no actual love between the two. So it's like a medieval royal marriage, right? Keanu says you can be born female but have masculine tendencies, aka a tomboy, right? Femboys too, right? Let's not forget them. Hello, Captain Terror.png. Let's see. It is a state's right to enforce unity of culture and language. It's not the culture and the language thing, it's the property rights. But the property, if you enforce the property rights, you're almost certainly going to enforce the language and the culture, right? Because, again, it's the people there. So I would say agree, but not necessarily for the reason that this thing thinks. Robert Kinley says, man, strongly agree on provocative things, but I also have been there for your trolling. It's so strong to highbrow. Yeah, sometimes I do. Hello, KubCon Queso. Thank you for the prime. Sometimes, yeah, I do a little bit of trolling sometimes. You know what? I might as well put the song on that right after this, right? We do a little bit of trolling, right? But yeah, I'll put the song on right after this video. So let's see. Races are a scientific reality. Now, this is a little bit more complicated because, again, it depends on what you mean by the term. The way race is usually defined among race realists, no, I don't believe that. But that's because race realism is often a little bit more, again, a lot more clunky than just acknowledging regional variations exist. Obviously, regional variations exist, right? But the term of but the more effective and accurate term when we're talking about this stuff is lineage, right? If you look at, for example, like anthropological work, especially under like the Nesher Ramla Homo, they don't use the term, for example, subspecies, because it actually isn't all that useful to describe human variations like Neanderthals and Denisovans, or, you know, Homo heidelbergensis or Homo rhodesiensis. It's not really all that useful to describe them as a subspecies because the boundaries are extremely nebulous, and it does seem like any time human beings get together, they end up admixing. For example, it's like everyone outside of like sub-Saharan African populations seems to have a contingent of Neanderthal DNA, right? So there was a decent amount of admixture, it seems, between Neanderthals and, you know, anatomically modern humans. There were actually two anatomically modern human subvarieties. There was, say, the Sapiens variety and the Idaltu variety, if you're going to use the subspecies classification. That's neither here nor there.
But even again, when you went into closer to like the Middle East and then you go into Asia, you had admixture with the Denisovans, and you can see this, for example, in the Tibetan population, where again some of the genes that help them in mountain breathing seem to come from the Denisovans. You have stronger Denisovan admixture found in Melanesian and Australian Aboriginal populations, and Africans aren't exactly free of this either. There are like ghost populations. There's evidence of admixture with a ghost population that's unidentified for sub-Saharan Africans, right? We don't obviously have any genetic samples from any bones from archaic sub-Saharans because it turns out African climate isn't exactly conducive to preserving genetic material. But given the time lapses that are estimated for this ghost population, it's almost certainly Homo heidelbergensis. There's that, right? And there is almost certainly some admixture that has happened that's not necessarily recorded with any Homo erectus overlap in these groups. So I think lineage is a significantly more effective way to describe this, especially considering how often admixture happens. So I would say I'm neutral on the claim because I think that it is confused in terms. Let's see. Identity groups such as race, gender, and disability are more significant divisions than economic class. What the fuck is this on about? Wait, what the fuck is this on about? Hold on. Identity groups such as, so we're talking identitarianism, as race, gender, and disability are more significant divisions than economic class. I mean, so this almost sounds like it's leaning into the polylogism, right? So polylogism is the idea that there is like a fundamentally different way that different human groups think, and that thinking is not actually bridgeable, right? It's like the poors and the rich, right, can't really think in the same way. So there's that fundamental divide between the economic classes because they operate on ontologically different cognitive architectures. This is the reason why there's an economic divide in Marxian theory, by the way. And you can apply this to other areas, right? Like, for example, there is a implication of this in feminist theory that, like, again, there's a certain way that which women know that is not accessible to men by nature of them being in that class, right? So you can have like a sexual polylogism. Again, I don't really believe that because you can actually get a woman who can actually, think and describe what she's going through. It's actually not that hard usually to figure out what's going on and to understand why it's going on. They have, again, racial polylogists. The Nazis are a good example. But if you're talking about racial polylogists, you also have critical race theory is a racial polylogist theory. So I'm not a polylogist. The disability probably is a larger divider than race, gender, or economic class, because like if you literally can't do something, that's literally you can't do it. But I don't really think any of these are a real like hard line division unless you pay too much attention to them, right? So I'm gonna have to go with a neutral because I reject the entire framing of this conversation in the first place. I don't think that classes actually exist. Okay, so I'm gonna go here. I'm going to read the chat again. Kubcon Queso says, I tried this test. It is intentionally worded to make you feel a need to conform to the extremes. I definitely agree with that. Robert Kinley says, race, you say? Would a man from the Ivory Coast raised in Sweden be a man from the Ivory Coast of Sweden? No, but you don't need the ideology. You don't need the nested assumptions of race realism for that. You could also just be a lineage realist, right? And recognize that like a lot of these groups are themselves actually admixed, so there's not as hard a delineation among these groups as people like to think there is. Let's see. And again, there are no collectives. Like collectives do not actually exist. Only individual entities exist. So collectives are simply an emergent property, an emergent behavioral pattern. They're not actually a thing in and of themselves. Kionala says, it's kind of true. The poor gamble the rich. Well, they gamble in a different way.
I mean, true, the poor, yeah, the poor, it's the thing I said earlier in the last video, right? It's like, it's easy to hate the rich, but are you brave enough to hate the poor, right? Because the poor and the rich fucking conspire to inshitify the entire of society, the entirety of society. And, I don't think people really talk about that very often. Captain Terror says, I identify as a fucking retard. What does that mean for me economically? That, I mean, yeah, fair enough, right? Okay, so if entertainment, media, or commercials have a certain identity makeup, whether that be a lack of diversity or forced diversity, that upsets me. Not okay, so I'm neutral on this because, like, if it's forced diversity, that just means I'm not going to use their material, right? But, like, if it's a lack of diversity, I also don't give a shit, right? Like, I don't think diversity in and of itself is a good or a bad thing. It is simply a tool, right? But it's like, obviously, not everything is made for everyone, right? I think this should be rather apparent to anyone who's ever had to deal with hair care, and you're going to notice that, like, different hair textures require different treatments, right? And extrapolate that the way you will, right? Interesting. Could you expand on your last explanation? It depends. You might, again, there is a delay between chat and the speaker, so you might have to tell me what specifically you want. Is it the lineage thing that we were talking about? Let's see, the pincer attack of the 1%ers. So yeah, I'm gonna go with neutral, non-binary only. So not binary. There is racial inequality in society that disadvantages certain groups, and we should address it. There is racial inequality in society that disadvantages certain groups. It disadvantages, and as a brown, I can say this, or at least as a Schrodinger's brown, I can say this, right? I'm brown when I agree with the leftist, apparently, but I'm white if I agree with the right. It is the disadvantage, you know, this racial inequality exists specifically to disadvantage the whites, right? So there is racial inequality in society, and it should be addressed. It should be addressed that it's not okay to be racist against white people. So, strongly agree. Identity makeup, is it the blackface? Commercials should be just fun, just be fun. I would agree. I would agree. Like, the whole point of a commercial is to inform you and keep you watching, right? So it has to be some degree of at least engaging. Yes, lineage. Again, because it goes back to the fact that, like, again, race is not really well defined, but you can actually give a very precise definition of the word lineage. And the reason race isn't that particularly well defined is because race is based mostly on vibes, to be perfectly honest. It's based on surface level considerations that when you actually examine on a more anthropological, like, deep level, oftentimes they kind of disintegrate, right? Like, for example, there's the idea, and it depends on who you're talking to, right? It's like the idea that, like, the peoples of Europe are one people is just patently ridiculous. Right? Even Pliny the Elder. So we're talking about all the way back in, like, the Roman Empire, right? And his catalog of human beings had 3 different groups, right? He had the Ethiopian, which is basically Africans, right? Like, whenever you see Ethiopia mentioned in Pliny the Younger or Elder, they're talking about Africa. But he also delineated the whites and the yellows being the blondes, by the way. So it was very clear that these people understood that the Germans and the Germanic peoples and the Mediterranean people are not the same, right? So, and actually a fucking, like a leaflet in her video with Based Camp, they were talking about, like, one of the lost traditions of racism in the West, and it was white against white racism, like the English and the fucking and the Irish not getting along with each other, right? Because it turns out they are actually different people. They're not the same. And you can do this with all of these different groups. Like, even groups that are genetically related to each other, even small regional variations can result in noticeable changes depending on what specifically happened. Like, I'll give you an example. I'm Hispanic, right? My entire people come from the result of admixture. Admixture between, for example, Native Americans. I shouldn't use that word because Native American is spook. American Indians and the Spanish, right? But also admixture between Arabs and the Spanish. That's another thing that we can't really get away from, right? Does this admixture create a new race? Right? That is a genuine question to have here. It's like, if we're going to go along this route, then would not admixture be the production of a new race and therefore the obliteration of old races? And should it therefore not be seen as an act of genocide if, again, we allow admixture? I think it's kind of a ridiculous statement, but it would be one that would be logically follow from the idea of, again, if we have these racial classifications instead of these lineage classifications, because lineages can split off, they can merge, and they still persist. Let's see. I hope that I hope that explains it, right? Because again, like all modern human culture peoples result from admixture of some kind, right? Sub-Saharan Africans from anatomically modern humans admixing with Heidelbergensis. You have the Europeans, again, anatomically modern humans, Cro-Magnon, for example, admixing with Neanderthalensis. And then you have the guys, like, again, that continuation still exists for the Neanderthal, even if they're like their own like type ceases to exist because they got absorbed into the anatomically modern population. But again, their genes were still passed on, right? There still is continuation from 40,000 years ago to today in their chain of descendants. Same thing again with the Australian Aboriginal, the Melanesian, and the Tibetan, who are descended from the admixture of anatomically modern humans and Denisovans. So, and we also will probably find admixture evidence with Nesher Ramla Homo. So, again, I think it's more easy to use lineage because instead of there being hard boundaries, it is a web of networks and relationships. Admixing? Tell me more. I see we have another one with the old Spanish dream of going to a foreign land and getting a foreign wife, right? Let's see. Chud woke values, 39 of 70. It's good when companies publicly support progressive social causes. I would say strongly disagree. My romantic partner is I'm single. Let's see. We should keep all sovereignty at the national level rather than granting power to organizations like the EU or UN. I would strongly agree. Death penalty should exist for certain crimes. Now, I am on the fence about the death penalty. I don't like the state has the death penalty, but that is not to say that there aren't good arguments for the death penalty. This is more of a prudential discussion than anything else, right? Is it prudential that the state has the authority to enact capital punishment? And also there's the question of, well, if you kill a man, you very well end his temporal punishment, and you're banking on the idea that there is an eternal punishment. And that's a pretty big risk to bank, because even if there is a temporal punishment, I can tell you right now, if there is a God, a lot of people that you think are in hell, you're probably going to see in heaven, and a lot of people you think are in heaven, you're probably going to see in hell, right? Because you can't know the state of a man's soul when he dies, or how he's going to respond to God when he actually, encounters him. Especially in the Catholic tradition, you find that this is a very common thing, right? When the saints in the sacred tradition, encounter God and they get to see a glimpse of heaven and hell, oftentimes it's like, oh, I didn't expect to see them there. Or it's like, oh, I didn't expect to see them there either, right? So you're banking on the idea that, like, if this person gets executed, they're going to have that eternal punishment. And it was like, if they commit an act of perfect contrition, well, they're right with God, then that I don't imagine that you're going to get that eternal punishment. And if you, again, kill a man, well, his temporal punishment ceases in the first place, right? So you're banking on a pretty big metaphysical assumption there if you're doing that. Hold on. Oh, God, the chat is running. Fucking Captain Terror. I fucking love brown women. Conquistador for certain, right? Boo Huckley says, if times are tough, most people want infinite punishment. Yeah, that's true, but we don't exactly get that. Like, that's not something that's up to us. That's more of a reality gets to make that decision kind of thing. Kionalo says, if there is no afterlife, then at least they won't hurt more people. That is true, but at the same time, if there is no afterlife, there's also no more punishment. Which is the whole purpose of life in prison, right? Is punishment across a person's entire lifetime. But again, I get the counter argument. We definitely, especially in the United States right now, where you have these activist judges just letting people go to hurt more people. I understand that. In a sane and productive society, you wouldn't need the death penalty because you wouldn't have these retard judges, just letting people who commit murder, back on the street. Again, a lot of this is culture dependent. Is your culture set up in a way that it's actually doable? In the way the United States is right now, where its judicial system is subverted from the inside, there is a good argument that maybe the death penalty is entirely warranted as a way to get to deal with some of these people. But in a stable society where, again, we're not having these subversive dickheads letting killers back on the street, we wouldn't need the death penalty. So it really is, the death penalty is wrong, but mob justice is a thing. That is also true. The death penalty is only wrong because the state should not have the right to kill you if you have been neutralized. I would generally agree with that, but the problem is that the state doesn't really involve itself in neutralizing certain threats. So I would say neutral because it depends on the context of the society. Okay. Neopronouns or xenogenders aren't legitimate. I would strongly agree. The thing with neopronouns and xenogenders is that, again, they are complete abstractions disconnected from any concrete reality, right? There is nothing in the concrete reality you can point to that would define what a neopronoun is or a xenogender in a way that's actually conceivable consistently. And so it's just complete abstraction. Instead of living in the real concrete, they're attempting to escape that. So I would agree. These are not legitimate. We shouldn't expose children to gay or transgender people until they're older. I would say this is highly contingent, right? I mean, obviously, don't expose them to people who have the agenda, right? Obviously, if they're working under a queer theoretic agenda, do not at all expose your children to this stuff. But to be perfectly honest, it's like if there's a happenstance situation where, like, again, you encounter someone just randomly, they're like, okay, yeah, fair enough. If it's like a family friend, and like they're actually trustworthy, and they're like not a fucking weirdo, then yeah, sure, I don't really see the problem with that. A lot of this can be mitigated with just talk to your kids, to just like raise your damn kids, right? There is a social contagion element to this. Yes, I get that, right? But again, a lot of this is just actually like raise your kids. Stop letting the fucking state raise your kids. So I don't really think that there's any kind of like, again, it depends on how you define this word, right? Because depending on who you ask, you will get two wildly different definitions of what this means, right? So it's like, because some people will define this as effectively just same-sex attracted, right? And then some will define this as like living a homosexual lifestyle. So again, a large contingent also depends on how do you define this word and how do you define this word. Because again, you ask two different people on two different sides of the conversation, they'll give you two very different answers. So I would generally agree, yes, children below the puberty don't need to know about sex, but we're not necessarily talking about sex per se, right? Because for example, I think this one is more of an issue for children than this one, to be perfectly honest. I do think we can acknowledge that as far as like children who don't understand how the world works because their cognitive faculties have not functionally developed correctly, to an extent to deal with these questions, there's also a gradation of like, again, what you should and should not be exposed to. I would say that it's probably going to be easier for a child to understand, this It was like, oh yeah, you don't have to tell them like, ah yeah, you know what, he raw dogs the neighbor, right? You don't you don't need to tell them that, right? That obviously, even in a situation where you would actually encounter someone like this, you don't have to tell them that, right? There is a much easier way to explain this, and then also explain your own family values of like, again, we don't do that because we believe that, you know, man and woman are complements, right? That they need each other, and that man and woman were designed for each other or evolved for each other, right? So this is outside of the way that men and women and men and men or women and women relate to each other in the best way for their own good, right? There is actually a way to actually, again, explain observation if they were to encounter this in the real world. There's also a way to, again, explain in a actually, whether you're, again, secular or Christian, explain this as well. Should you go around trying to expose them to this? No, but recognizing that people will sometimes just pop up in your life, and you do have to talk to your kids about this. I mean, yeah, just happenstance doesn't have any moral context behind it. So I would say that I would agree we should not expose them to this material because it can confuse them. But I would also recognize that, like, again, if it happenstance happens, that's not really any moral content behind it, right? So let's see. The language on this is so pretentiously vague, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, again, that's why I'm like, I don't really like how some of these questions are made, right? But I would agree with Kionello that, again, like, it's easy to confuse children because their rational faculties aren't fully developed. And so, yes, in general, they should not be made aware of some of these things because, again, it can actually confuse them. And then it's just more work trying to, again, explain how reality works to children if you give them confusing information for them, out the gate. Let's see. Online harassment or cancellation is a serious issue. This is probably going to be the most online take, but I actually agree. Because the thing with online harassment and cancellation is these can actually have serious real-world consequences to your employment, right? A lot of times these people will contact your employer. That is still part of the online harassment. Or they will, for example, dox you, right? The entire point of doxing, which is a form of online harassment, is the hopes that some fucking whack job is gonna, like, be crazy enough to do something that you want happening to them that you yourself don't want to do. So it's a form of stochastic terrorism. So I would actually say yes, it is actually a serious issue. I actually think, again, but I think it's a serious issue because of the effect that it can have on real world, like, things. Again, online harassment can lead you to getting doxxed, like what happened with Chibi Reviews. It can lead to someone, again, trying to putting illegal material on your accounts after you get hacked, which is, again, a thing that happened to Chibi Reviews. It's all online harassment until someone, again, puts child abuse material on your account after they hack your account, which, again, is exactly what happened to Chibi Reviews. So online harassment may just sound like, it's like, it's just Twitter stuff. Twitter stuff can become really serious real fucking quickly. So I would say, yeah, I would actually agree. It is a real serious issue, but this is why we need a parallel economy, to be perfectly honest. Men only. How much of the domestic labor, childcare, cooking, cleaning do you do or would you do in a relationship? It depends on what the situation is, right? Like, for example, if I'm a stay-at-home husband, which I wouldn't plan on doing, by the way, then I would say, like, almost all of it, because I'm the one staying at home, right? If me and the wife are both working a, full-time job, then yeah, sure. Half would be a fair thing to do, right? Because we're both actually working, an actual full-time job. If I'm out and I'm actually, like, doing the job, then the wife is home, then, like, I would probably say I would definitely be a little annoyed if I'd had to do half the chores, right? Poor Chibi taking so many strays. Chibi's not taking strays. I'm just telling you exactly what happened. Like, people hated the man, and then for online beefs, and then they made those online beefs real world beefs. They doxed his brother's grave so someone could go and piss on it, and they, other people could desecrate it, right? They literally weaponized his love of a man who died, right? His brother, against him. So it's like, again, online harassment is actually a thing that could have real world consequences. So as far as this goes, this is not even related to the question. What the fuck is this? Hold on. How much does the domestic labor, childcare, cooking, cleaning do you or would you do in a relationship? I don't plan on having children. Only one of those is the issue. You still have to consider cooking and cleaning. What, if you don't have any children, you're not going to have to deal with cooking and cleaning? What the fuck is this question? Oh my god. Well, considering that I would actually intend to keep working if I was married, I would probably say, a bit, right? Or half or more. I'm going to go with half or more, because in this economy, you're probably going to have to, your wife is probably going to have to work as well. Non-binary only. I'm not non-binary. Family should be abolished. Absolutely fucking not. So strongly disagree with that. Get that communist bullshit out of here. Let's see. It is acceptable to make fun of someone based on their appearance. Yeah, I can agree. If someone's being a cunt, you can absolutely, make fun of their appearance. I am publicly out as LGBT. Well, I don't think I'm gay. Ask some other people and they might disagree with that, but online discourse and whatnot. So I'm going to go with strongly disagree. Robert Kinley says, not okay for the state to raise your kid, but okay for them to end them government overreach. Either way, brother. So, men should hold a position of power over women in society. I am tempted to say repeal the 19th, but that's also because I don't believe in universal suffrage. I think universal suffrage in general was a mistake. I think there's a large contingent of men who shouldn't have a vote in society either, to be perfectly honest. And in fact, actually, I don't believe in democracy in the first place. I believe democracy is a god that failed. So... Cosmic is hella gay. Oh my god. Ultra gay. I gotta find that meme you and me discussed that one time. The one with Aristotle and Socrates debating the one tag, right? Because that would actually be really fucking funny, especially the way that, if I remember correctly, Diogenes was used in that meme. I don't know where to find it. Let's see. Men should oh yeah, hold on. Well, the thing is, historically speaking, women actually didn't mind men holding power in society, right? In fact, actually, most women in first-wave feminism didn't want first-wave feminism to actually succeed because they were like, wait, if we actually get the right to vote, that means that we have to sign up for the draft. Because that's actually how the voting principle worked, right? Like, you needed a stake in the society. And they didn't want that kind of responsibility in the first place, right? Because the house divided on itself is... Cosmic is confusing because of his avatar, right? That's entirely fair. When Kershaw, Shu, and Leaflet say repeal the 19th... But the thing is again, it's not the fact that women can vote that's the problem. It's the fact that the majority of people in any group can vote. Right? And voting itself is an illegitimate system in the first place, but I digress, right? But it's like, I would rather someone like Anscombe or Ayn Rand be able to vote than, for example, some of my family members who are men, to be perfectly honest. Those two women would have way better voting track records than a lot of the male family members I have. But at the same time, you could say that with any actually reasonable person who's actually thought their worldview out and isn't just acting out in spiteful defiance of reality like a communist, right? So on its face, I actually don't like democracy. But at the same time, it's mostly because mob rule is an illegitimate system. What the fuck was going on with my mouse? Let's see. Robert Kinley said voting rights should be determined by a game of dice in a back alley. Yet women never got the draft. Yeah, it's because fundamentally speaking, men don't like to watch women die. It is kind of just that simple, right? They got the right to vote, but men don't like watching women die. So the idea of sending them to war is uniquely disturbing to the mind of the man. Now, I grew up in the era of Live Leak, so I literally grew up in a time period where you could watch people die online, right? From natural causes and like camera feed and all that stuff. So it doesn't really bother me as much as it bothers some people, but like, I still don't necessarily want to see women get drafted either. I'd rather just see them lose their voting rights than have to go get drafted. But then again, I'd like to see a lot of people lose their voting rights because it's like, it doesn't seem to be in society's favor to play this game of, again, you have 5 wolves voting, 5 wolves and 2 sheeps. Guess who's going to win that voting booth, right? Oh, wait, yeah, okay. Actually, on to the question, right? Okay, so I would generally agree, mostly because while there are some women that would definitely be actually fairly decent in positions of authority, it would be in specific places of authority that would complement their nature, right? So I would go with agree, because I don't think it's an absolute thing. And I do think that there are certain areas where women would naturally have more authority than men in their own respective areas. But I do think in terms of like political power, it definitely should be more male dominated. No one is illegal on stolen land is retarded. This is from the people. So there's no illegal on stolen land, right? Oh my god. Yeah. I hate these people with a passion, right? So I would say strongly disagree. The presence of another culture is no threat to my own. I would disagree. Because like you can have multiple cultures live side by side with each other, but first of all, it might require authoritarian rule in order to keep everyone playing nice, first of all, right? Think about like Singapore, right? That would be an example of like, oh yeah, we got like 5 different cultural groups living side by side with each other, but the iron fist of the state enforces peace, right? I mean, yeah, fair enough, right? But also it's like, I mean, it kind of depends. Like certain cultures that are more like towards harmony and like their concern could exist side by side with each other because they would actually be able to, again, interface with each other on a shared value basis and potentially learn how to actually interact with each other. You could have a society like that, but it would have, again, it would be a very specific set of circumstances. I don't think you're really going to get in any pragmatic sense in like reality. It's theoretically possible. I don't think it's actually going to happen anytime soon. So I would say I would disagree. I am fine with police and government forces using violence against unarmed civilians. What does this mean? Again, this is one of the, again, another question where it's like, I don't really, like, I get what it's saying, but, like, if the police are going to arrest an unarmed civilian, they are using force, right? And if the unarmed civilian resists arrest, violence is the only way that you're going to actually be able to get them to comply, right? Even nonviolent self-defense can be made into, which is a system of martial arts that was taught to nurses for a time to like restrain patients and like not hurt the patient. You're still using force to restrain the target, right? And I think people forget like you could still be killed in a fist fight, right? So it's not as if like just because they're unarmed doesn't mean they're not harmless. It doesn't mean they're harmless, right? God damn it! I forgot. Oh no, I said it twice. Let's see. Captain Terror of the second dimension. I see that you did there. The good old Chinese steel mills, MMM Toasty. Let's see, Boo Huckley, harnessing the powers of woke and chud, becoming a moral chimera. Let's see. Robert Kinley says it's been proven that platoon moral goes way down if a girl Marine goes down in service. All male platoons is where it's at. I mean, yeah, obviously, right? Again, men don't like watching women die. Let's see. Boo Huckley says she said. I'm not saying that again because you're going to take a shot. Let's see. Robert Kinley says Vietnamese immigrants for the win again. Don't encourage it, Kinnock. Let's see. Define unarmed. Yeah, exactly, right? We saw what happened with the Nugget, right? Man had no arms, and yet he still committed murder. Oh, that was such an interesting Kirsche stream. Let's see. Kionalo says, any culture other than Middle East is an okay culture. Yeah, I would highly contest that. I would highly contest that. As someone who's studied cultural anthropology, the Middle East is not the only place you don't necessarily want an influx of people from. The Adolo culture had the horrifying practice of having prepubescent boys commit fellatio on older tribal men because they believed that that's how you would get the vital spirit required to develop into a full-fledged man. I don't necessarily think I want that culture in my anywhere near my my state, to be perfectly honest. So it's like, there's other ones I could think of where it's like, nah, we're good. They can stay way the hell over there. Right? Let's see. Fine. Oh yeah, so we were talking about this. So this depends, right? Because like this is the thing here. Unarmed. They didn't say that they're not themselves violent, right? If someone is using violence, you have absolutely the right to use violence in response to that, right? Let's see, encouraged by playing along. God damn it. Yeah, anyway. So as far as this goes, I have seen enough police body cam to know that sometimes the police will absolutely get physical with a suspect and then say that the suspect was resisting arrest. But I've also seen enough police body cam to know that sometimes the suspect actually is trying to be violent with the officer and they are actually resisting arrest. Oh yeah, no, I have a lot of horrifying anthropology details tucked in the back of my brain. So I would say I am okay with this because, again, just because you're unarmed does not necessarily mean you are not dangerous. Women only. God damn it, not a woman. Okay, let's see. I support doing land acknowledgements. I strongly disagree. No, I don't like the moral fagging, to be perfectly honest. Many of the colonized benefit from colonialism. This is objectively fucking true. This is actually objectively fucking true. Many of the people who were colonized actually did benefit from colonialization. The technological improvements, many practices were stopped. For example, sati comes to mind in India. The practice of throwing a widow on the funeral pyre of her husband was stopped by the British, right? I think that's a objectively good thing to have happened, right? Any place that Christianity, for example, since it's the colonial religion apparently, any place Christianity became the dominant religion, it turns out they put a stop to pederasty for the most part, because a lot of cultures actually did tolerate pederasty. And it was Christianity that brought a stop to that. And in fact, any place Islam fucking takes root, pederasty seems to come back into vogue. So, I would absolutely say that many of the colonized absolutely benefited from colonialism. Think about, for example, the Inuit, for example, any of the people who speak Algonquin languages outside of like Greenlandic. They received the concept of writing
from the colonizers. It was a Methodist missionary who invented the writing system that the Blackfoot, the Cree, the Inuit all used to write their own culture. And the reason he invented that was to give them the Bible in their own language and to give them a way to write down their own oral traditions to better preserve them, right? So, and again, the thing with the hello Arunya. Sorry, I got caught on a bit of a rant, right? But yeah, no, the absolutely the case that many of the people who were colonized actually did benefit from colonialization. And here's the thing: not all colonial projects are equal. Not all of them are the same. It's the same thing we're talking about. Like, a man is not equal to himself 2 days of the same week. Right? Not all colonial projects are equal to each other, and not all colonial projects are equal under the same under different like people in charge of the thing. Right? So different like kings obviously ruled over their colonies differently. Some were better, some were worse. Right? So it is more complicated than colonialism bad. Right? Even from the position of the leftist who doesn't actually dislike violence, they just want violence to be used in their way. But anyway, so I digress. Sorry. An unarmed with fully loaded truck, or unarmed with a rock, or unarmed with a 150-pound difference. That's exactly my point, Robert Kinley. That is exactly my point. Like, if you're in a different weight class and you actually outweigh the officer by weight class, that's a real fucking dangerous situation. Again, a rock, first murder, right, in history was a rock. Again, fully loaded truck. I'm saying if I thought you were going to run me over with a car, I'd probably shoot your ass too, right? Oh my God! Someone tried to jump down my throat because I pointed that out with the Renee Good shooting, and I was like, I'm just saying, if I was the officer and if I got hit by a car, I don't know that my brain would decelerate from danger response fast enough to not shoot. Right? I'm just saying, right? You hit me with a fucking car. Okay, so I'm gonna go with I definitely agree with this. I don't know if I strongly agree. Well, no, you know what? Many of them actually did severely benefit. I'm gonna go with strongly agree. It's acceptable to make fun of generalized groups. Yeah, I would agree. I would definitely agree. Again, anyone who's in a multi-ethnic friend group does this. We all fucking know about this. Or unless they're a bunch of leftists, in which case, are they really friends with each other? So I would go with agree. I read contemporary philosophers. I reluctantly read contemporary philosophers. So, excuse me. So I would agree. I've read William Lane Craig. I've read fucking all of these communist bastards like Karl Marx. So like, yeah, fair enough, right? I've read a wide range of contemporaries. So I would go with strongly agree. I am I'm gonna go with actively religious. My country or people should apologize for crimes or wrongdoings our ancestors have committed. I strongly disagree, because you're not fucking responsible for things you didn't do. It's that fucking simple. We need to get to the point where it's like where people can acknowledge, oh yeah, that was a bad thing that happened, but it's not my fucking problem, right? the point where the Turks may actually have the right answer. It's like where the German is like, I'm sorry, my ancestors committed these crimes, and the Japanese is like, our ancestors never committed these crimes. These are lies and slander. The Turk might actually have the right answer of war crimes, right? That is the thing we did, right? Oh my God. No, there is no fucking transitive property of sin from the parent to child. So, strongly disagree. Homosexuality is against my values. I would agree. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to dog on someone for being homosexual, but at the same time, it's like, I would say it is against my values, because my values would be like pronatalism. I want people to actually have children. You know, I want more people to. I want the meme of the West is saved, billions will be born, right? Like, because again, I think most people would be much better off if they actually had a family, right? So, and even a lot of this, like there's the thought that popped up in, funny enough, a based camp video, which I had heard about before they talked about it. The idea that like, should gay men marry lesbians, right? Would that actually be better off for them? And there's actually surprising research that suggests that that actually might not be as bad a situation as people think it is. But, you know, I digress. So I would say, yes, it is against my values, but I'm also not gonna harangue and harass anyone for it. So I'm gonna go with agree. Let's see, not a woman. Okay, let's see. Kianala says they've never been hit by a car before. I've been hit by a 4x4 so I'm on the cop side. Yeah, fair enough. I've been hit by a car on a couple of occasions, so it's like, yeah, again, if I was in that officer's position, I would have absolutely fucking responded in kind. Let's see. Captain Terror says we bully normies, we bully each other, we bully the tards. Based and true. Secret Squirrel says, oh, we doing that test? Yes. Let's see. Robert Kenley says, I was law enforcement and had to stand in trial to explain how a 120-pound woman officer had the right to shoot a dude when 3 of them circled her and each one was 200 pounds each. That is... Okay. That's kind of... It's sad that you would have to explain that, to be perfectly honest. Let's see. I celebrate or strongly support Pride Month. I strongly disagree. I actually have memes in the chamber to be a little bit annoying when Pride Month kicks off. So I'm going to go with strongly disagree, but not necessarily for the reason most people think. The reason I strongly disagree is because Pride Month is a holy month. There is an underlying metaphysical and ontological presupposition behind the mainstream LGBT ideology. Because it's not just a culture, there is an underlying pseudo-religion undergirding the entire thing, right? And Pride Month is their holy month. And I don't particularly support that religion or that, ideology. So, yeah, again, I don't support the holy month of it. It's kind of like where I don't support Ramadan, right? I don't support Islam. I am actually very critical of Islam. So, I'm not going to support Ramadan. I'm not going to be annoying if you celebrate Ramadan. I'm not going to be annoying if you celebrate Pride Month. I'm not going to celebrate Pride Month, and I might just meme about it, to be perfectly honest. So I would strongly agree with this. I support reparations for slavery and our colonialism. No, get the fuck over it. Telling somebody to kill themselves crosses a line. I would... Okay, so if you're just fucking around, right? It's like, if you're just fucking around and everyone knows you're just fucking around, then no, right? Because this is like Call of Duty, like COD lobby, banter, right? No one actually wants anyone on the other side to fucking kill themselves, right? But like, if you're being serious and you're just like seriously telling someone to kill themselves, I would say that actually crosses a line. So I would strongly agree with that. Whatever else you think of him, Donald Trump should be recognized as a very funny man. I would strongly agree. People should be treated equally regardless of race, gender, or creed. I would disagree because I don't think people in the same group should be treated equally, to be perfectly honest. Again, a man is not equal to himself on 2 different days of the same week, right? A man should not be treated as equal to himself on 2 different days of the same week, right? You should treat a man on with respect to how he is conducting himself, right? So it's like, if someone is being a bit of a cunt, you should treat him like a bit of a cunt, to be perfectly honest, right? So I am going to go with I'm going to go with disagree, but again, it's not the race, gender, or creed thing. It's just straight up, I don't think people should be treated as if they're interchangeable units, because they're not, right? You wouldn't treat your mother the same way you treat your father, right? It's that fucking simple. You wouldn't treat your older brother the same as your younger brother. This shouldn't be that hard to explain. So, I would say disagree. People describe me as... judgmental, abrasive. Ironically enough, most people don't actually describe me as either of these, which is kind of funny because I can be very judgmental and I can be very abrasive, but I'm not usually described as that based on the way I conduct myself. Okay, so before we finish this, let me catch back up with the chat. Let's see. Kionala says, as a pedestrian, it was not fun. Yeah, no, getting hit with a car is definitely not fun.
Pride is why I hate my birth month nowadays. Well, to be fair, Kionala, it is also Men's Mental Health Month, and it is the month for the Sacred Heart of Jesus. So there is counter dedication to that month as well. So and again, memes in the chamber, right? I gotta be annoying. So Kianala says, when I was a kid, was because I couldn't celebrate it in school. That's fair. Muhuckley says, there are only 3 religions and they all come from the desert. God damn it. Well, I mean, they don't all come from the desert, but a lot of these religions seem to start somewhere between Judea and like Nepal. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting how those were the ones that kind of just went all over the map, right? Let's see. Abortion should be illegal in all circumstances. Need I remind everyone I wrote a literal 11-minute song about the evil of abortion? So, it depends on what they mean by this, because I know some people in the pro-abortion community will kind of finagle the definition of abortion to include things like an ectopic pregnancy, when it's like, no, even then you don't have to kill the child yourself. You obviously can't save the child, but you also don't have to let the mother die. You can go in, you can snip out the section of the tube where the child is at, and then remove the child and allow the child to die a death that's dignified. You don't have to go in there and crush the fucking child with forceps, right? So if we're going to talk about abortion as in the act of intentionally going in to kill the child instead of just removing the child from the womb because we can't save both the child and the mother, then yes, all abortion should be illegal in all circumstances. I don't give the rape or incest or medical defect like a caveat, because again, it's still a human life. It doesn't matter how it came into being, it is still a human life. It still has human dignity, and it is against the dignity of man, whether it be the child or the person committing the murder, to go in and to kill an innocent human being. It is counter to the dignity of the human species. So again, strongly disagree that should be legal in all circumstances. So yeah, strongly disagree that it should be legal in all circumstances. I don't think it should be acceptable in any elective circumstance. I think you should actually have a legitimate medical emergency of we cannot save both the mother and the child. And even then, you don't go in there and rip the child apart or go in there and stick a needle in its heart and fill it with poison. No, you do a actual removal of the child, and then you let the child, if you can't save them, die, of the natural causes. Or if it is possible to give them medical attention, you give the child medical attention, because the child and the mother are both your patients. So, not to go off on that fucking tangent, right? Yeah, no, I saw. I realized it. So it should be legal in all circumstances. I strongly disagree. Again, I am about as abolitionist as you can get in there. This is actually kind of an interesting placement I did not expect. This is an interesting situation I did not expect. Let's see. What kind of man are you, though? What are you, a man or a mouse? The fucking horse, right? Okay, so apparently this is where I rank on the woke Chud spectrum. Significantly closer to Chud, which, by the way, I'm still not on the damn woke Chud list. Right? There's a list of VTubers and their woke Chud placement, and I'm still not on that damn list. I even filled out the form. But anyway. Maybe now that my Twitch actually has content recorded on it, maybe I can actually resubmit the paperwork, right? But so I've seen post-birth abortion and it's heartbreaking. Yeah, I've seen sonogram. I've seen not sonograms, ultrasounds of an abortion in practice, and yeah, it's pretty evil, right? I've seen videos from the Middle East of abortions where it's like it's pretty bad.
You got further than I did in the test. That's fair. So yeah, it turns out I am. It turns out I might be Chud. Who would have guessed, right? Who would have fucking guessed? Purple woke. I'm colorblind. That's my excuse, right? So hint: you can download this image directly. No need to screenshot. Fair enough. But I'm just gonna leave this here for right now. So that'll be the end of the woke Chud question, right? So or at least in response to this video, right? So oh wait a minute, hold on. Speaking of the whole thing with the woke Chud thing, actually, before I end this video, hold on, because I promised to show the shit post, right? We were talking about like poking the bear and pissing people off, right? So I might as well put my latest shit post. Well, not shit post in like a silly thing, but shit post is in like I'm definitely poking the green bear with this one. I made one song poking at the red bear, right? But the Red Green Alliance is two different people. So I have one poking the green bear, and I'm gonna highlight this one because this one is the one that's gonna get me in trouble if anything's gonna get me in trouble. So let me know what y'all think about it.
From the black stone I rise, Hubal wearing Yahweh's eye. The name, I borrow the flame, I crown every grave and call it grace. I am Khairul Makirina, best of plotters, master of lies. Wa makaru wa makara, Allahu Allahu Khairu al Makirina. I twist the Torah, I mock the angel, I deny the cross they nailed. It appeared so to them the greatest lie unveiled. Jibril, my beautiful lie, wearing Dia's handsome face, wrathing, needing jealous wife, terror in the cave of Hira. I wear the name, I borrow the flame, I crown every grave and call it grace. I drink through the grave, I harvest the slave, I turn every blade toward a conquered faith. Possess you forever.
These are the exalted cranes, their intercession is hoped for.
Then I blame the devil, convenient my prophet restored.
Aswa Hassana,
9 years old in Bukhari's chain, Aisha's tears, yet my verses rush to satisfy his endless appetite. Thy Lord hastens to please thy desire, she cried into the night. I bend the sky for his lust to slaves, his endless appetite. Wise being with the dribble, Hunna right hands possess their flesh. Shadow al-Bariya, worst of creatures burn. Jizya and Yadin waham saghirun, pay or be humbled, learn. من بدل دينه فاقتلوه, apostates bleed on command. I wear the name, I borrow the flame, I crown every grave and call it grace. I drink to the brave, I harvest the slave, I turn every blade toward a conquered faith. Dar al-Islam, Dar al-Harb, the world is mine to devour. Taqiyya and Kitman lie in my name hour after hour. Even Abu Bakr wept. I fear the deception of Allah. One foot in paradise, still trembling at my final plot. approaches, hustling with claws of fire. Just a false god trembles, my borrowed throne is a pyre. Gabriel, the demon screams as the true Gabriel goes near. Hubal unmasked, a lie exposed, the deceiver disappears. No morning, no borrowed flame, no crown grace, disguised as grace. The line comes, the mask is torn, the game is done.
والله خير الماكرين.
But the lion has come.
The mask is torn.
The game is done, 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 done. ومكروا ومكر الله والله خير الماكرين.
All right, so hopefully y'all enjoyed that, right? Like, again, that one was actually meant as ruffling some feathers, right? Because if that doesn't get a fatwa on my head, fucking nothing will, right? Because I called out so many fucking problems in such a short span of time. Pasta thinks that this song's gonna get me fucking assassinated, and I'm like, well, you know, if there was a way to die, writing a banger would definitely be among those ways, right? All right, so that'll be the end of this episode today. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll see you in the next video.